Hello? Yes. Hello, everyone. I kindly ask you to comfortably take a seat as we are ready to continue with today's session. So welcome again, or welcome for the first time to those who are joining us today only, to the second day of the 6th annual political dialogue here in the lovely city of Konin. If you are joining us today only, my name is Jagoda Gregulska, and I have this wonderful pleasure of moderating the event for all of us here in Konin, and also for our kind guests and friends joining us online today. So before we go with, we continue with the sessions today, and we have again a very interesting and engaging program, I would like to take a moment to recap briefly on yesterday. Especially as some of you have noticed, we had an interruption or abrupt end to the last session. So I hope it's fine with Anya. I will just tell to everyone who is really concerned to say that Anya is well, and we are happy to have her with us today. So I know many of us were worried. Everything is fine. But since the session was in a way interrupted, I just wanted to take a moment again to thank Anya for wonderful moderation and to thank all the panelists for their inputs and contributions. So what we have here is what we had here before. I hope you had a chance to take a look at it briefly, and we have it back. It's really the richness of the ideas and perspectives and the inputs that we had in the sessions yesterday. Obviously, I cannot do justice to all of what was being said. But I think what stuck with me was really appreciation for the European Investment Bank for their effort to explain to us all how the bank and the European Commission are supporting the regions, what is available, and also the breadth and array of their instruments. Questions were coming. I really appreciate the very pragmatic take on the question about how regions can approach transition strategically. I think it was from a gentleman from the startups who was very precisely saying, do specialize. And I think that's something that stuck with me a lot. So I think we are in the process, all the regions are in some way in the process of specializations, but I understand from yesterday that the more specialized the regions are, the better chances are at attracting talent and investment. So that was the last session, but the entire day was really rich in inputs. The plenary sessions that we had and the Ask the Experts sessions were really exploring the issue of just transition or transition of the regions from many different perspectives. So we've heard from Teresa Rivera and representatives of DG ENER as well, about the variety of support offered and the commitment of the European Commission to the regions and the countries. And it was really encouraging to see this ongoing commitment and understand that the Commission is really with us. Then I think what stuck with me was incredible leadership and clarity that was coming from our regional leaders and national leaders. So I had a sense that we are in good hands in a way. I felt like there was a lot of good ideas, there was a lot of understanding of where we are and what we need to go further. And I think in a way it's also a testimony of the process that we have been all going through for the last 6 years as the annual events happening, but more broadly the entire transition, is that all of us as regions, we have learned a lot. And we are at this stage of really having accumulated great understanding, great practical understanding of what is needed. So I think this positions us very well going forward. I think all of you have participated in the site visits and the wonderful evening organized by the hosts. I think it was, again, amazing opportunity to exchange, to dialogue, to ask questions. And this is the essence of the community and of us coming together here. I hope those who are joining us online this year will be able to join in person next time. Couple of issues. I think you know the drill by now. We are a very rich international gathering here, so some of the colleagues may decide to speak in their languages. You have picked up, I hope all of you, the interpretation devices, so please be prepared at any point to smoothly ensure that you can follow the discussions. So for all of us here, this is the headsets. For colleagues online, this is Interactio application that you can join using the code dialogue. And we also, as yesterday, will be counting on your inputs through questions and through voting. So please be ready to use Slido and take active participation in our discussions. Now, very ready to get started with the program for today. Oh, sorry, before I do that, and let me just stress, because that's really important, I will be sharing more more details later, but we have two really interesting events happening today accompanying the major program that we have here, which is the Bloomberg Philanthropies and Forum Energy event, bringing voices and encouraging dialogue, which is very global and very international, and we'll be sharing the details. And we have Bankwatch initiative to, again, strengthen the dialogue with the core regions from the Western Balkans. So I will be sharing a little bit more detail later on of the events and encouraging you as well to stay in the afternoon and join the sessions. Now, I would like to introduce or invite to the stage Timon Wienert, the Senior Researcher and Co-Head of Research Unit at International Energy. Hi, Timon. Please take the stage. And we will be exploring the topic of ensuring industrial competitiveness through clean energy deployment. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I was thinking of how to start this after the inspiring evening we had with a lot of discussions. Some of us went on a boat, others were dancing, and I felt like, oh, if people feel as, I don't know, I don't want to say hungover, but a little bit mellow after the excitement, how do I get them to be interested again in the topic? Of course, we were all interested in the topic, so I thought maybe we could do a little dance, but no, not to scare you. I decided against a dancing unit. I'd rather start with the topic, right? Industrial competitiveness through clean energy deployment. And I did, when I was preparing this last-minute fine-tuning yesterday, I did what I do as a nerd. I went onto an app, which I recommend. I don't get shares or anything. It's not, the advertisement is, I don't get money on this, but it's electricity maps. And you can see live, basically, online, what the electricity mix is in various countries. And I did this for some of the countries which are present here. And instead of making you dance, I'm going to make you vote or guess what the electricity is. So this is the last 3 days. It stops at afternoon yesterday, and you see the day before yesterday and 2 days before yesterday. So it's clearly a country where you see at the bottom, the brown is coal in that country. You see during the day it was sunny, so maybe the smokers who were outside yesterday have a little bit of an advantage knowing, oh, was it a sunny smoking day or not? It definitely was windy here, so could it be Poland? We put the host at the first position. The blue is wind, and then there is lots of bits and pieces of imports and gas and whatnot. We don't want to mess with the details. So my question to you is, and please go on Slido and make you guess, is that what you see of the last 3 days? Is that actually Poland, Germany, Romania, Spain? 3 people have voted. Go for it. And what is your guess? Arthur, you're not voting. I thought you were the expert on this. And you would beat all of us. I mean, it's anonymous. We keep the votes hidden for a second so that people can still vote. Is that Poland, Germany, Romania, Spain? A good base load of coal? I can give you numbers for this, right? At noon yesterday, in this picture, it's about 25% coal. It's 30-something% sun and 27% wind. Which of the countries do you think that is? Give you 3 more seconds for the people to vote who haven't voted yet. And then maybe we go into the answer. Let's see. So, it's a tight race. Romania and Spain, not too many people said that this would be it. 40%, more than 40% said this would be Poland, and 30% this would be Germany. Yeah, so there is a slight majority for the right answer, but to put it bluntly, 60% of us made the wrong choice of this. And thank you for joining me on that guess. I have to admit, I did this 2 years ago when I had a Polish delegation. I was looking it up and I'm like, oh, did I miss something? Why does Poland have so much solar in the system? And I was surprised. And I guess a lot of us are surprised to see when we look at facts and figures of how many renewables there are in the system already. And yeah, maybe just that as a background for the session when we're talking industry, regional development for cold regions, and clean energy, it is already there, right? It is not something that's coming in the future, and in all of those countries, I could have picked the other countries, you see a strong emphasis of solar and wind already in the system. Okay, that was my warm-up. If I feel, thank you. If I feel you're falling asleep again, I will make you dance, right? So keep your eyes open. We're going to have a first presentation. Oh, electricity maps. I don't get any credits or money for it. Electricity maps, and you can either download it as an app if you're a nerd as me and annoy your children and your wife and saying, hey, honey, how much do you think we have solar currently in Germany? Oh, we're down at 50%. Isn't that incredible? And I was like, oh, yeah, really, it's very interesting. Or you can do it on your computer and do it with your colleagues, and you may get a little bit of more, I don't know. Right. Okay, so we're going to have the first keynote speaker, and that's Małgorzata Stas. She's director at the Regional Development and Transition Department at the Marshal's Office in Silesia. Małgorzata, you've been involved in preparing the territorial just transition plan of the region, and what you will present is also some learnings of, or no, not some, well, yeah, also learnings, but also some, how was it really done? How was Silesia, how have they spent the money? How have they used it strategically? What are the learnings? If you're not fluent in Polish and you don't have your headset, this is your last chance to get it, because Małgorzata will be speaking in Polish. Please, the stage is yours.
Witam Państwa bardzo serdecznie.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For me, this is a special moment, being here, being able to deliver this keynote, because I was able to participate in the first annual political dialogue in Katowice. And yesterday, when I saw the picture on the first slide, I saw the picture from Katowice, the former Katowice coal mine that transformed our region, that led to a situation where we have a major congress center in the location where there used to be a coal mine. That is where we discuss transformation. That is where we show it live, because this place is vibrant now. It has been passed over to the residents, to the citizens, where there are congresses, international congresses organized. It's a very rewarding moment for me to see this picture. I think this is the fourth annual political dialogue. I've taken part also in other mining related platforms or platform meetings, but I've been part of this dialogue right from the start. And what is really important is the first moment where we can not only do the dance, but also exchange opinions and experiences face to face. This is the crucial moment of our activities when we meet face to face on this platform. As regards our region, as you can see on the slide, we started with a difficult transformation, multi-annual transformation, 400,000 initially. That was the workforce in mining. Now 70, 80,000. We are in the process of permanent transformation. It's still happening, and we are the second largest consumer when it comes to energy. And we are the third largest producer of energy when it comes to conventional energy sources. We have a problem implementing renewables because exposure to sunlight is average. Exposure to wind, here it was windy yesterday. In Silesia, wind is not as strong. Silesia is a highly urbanized area as well. In order to use wind, you need to be less urbanized, actually. So we have limited potential and competencies in this regard. We are creating our regional documents and strategies with support from European funds, European measures, but the competencies are constrained at our regional level. When we look at the development of clean renewable energy in our region, you do see the energy mix featuring coal. Coal is there, but every year we see also that the quality of air is improving. So our actions, the measures we have been implementing, are producing positive effects. Still, challenges lie ahead. As regards JTF and the European Regional Development Fund, this is where we are looking at integrated projects, partnership projects. Let me give you an example. We have a project led by the city of Rybnik, but there are many other partners, small towns from Silesia region. We are talking about a partnership that is worth a project that is worth 30 million euro, and the aim of the project is to support implementation of renewable energy sources in the region, in small towns. And the city of Rybnik, which was on the blacklist, right at the top of the blacklist when it comes to air pollution, now is the leader of transformation, the leader of positive change. Apart from that, we support sewage treatment plant renovation. For example, using biogas from those sewage treatment plants in order to reduce CO2 emissions. But also, we support projects that bring together startups, local residents, and scientists. We have a hub in the city of Tychy, a green economy hub, and it's a place where local residents are being trained in how to use renewable energy sources, in how to apply them in their households. We use the hub to also pass information on to local entrepreneurs and businesses to support their green transition, and also to foster collaboration and conversation between academia and people. We don't only support local governments, we also support businesses. We support businesses for them to be able to develop the deployment of green energy sources, but also shifting to business areas that are green. So, for example, the company Electrometal used to be a supplier for the mining industry, but now Electrometal is developing the production of chargers for electric cars and coaches and buses. A very important initiative is our hydrogen and renewables hub in Rybnik. Rybnik used to be a mining area, but now it wants to turn into a hydrogen area. It's actually implemented city buses, hydrogen fueled city buses. So here we are talking about our drive to diversify the businesses, and this is in line with our strategy, with our innovation strategy. We are placing a lot of emphasis on power generation, on renewables, on emerging businesses and emerging business niches. We have huge support from the JTF, 828 million euro investment in transformation, in changing the profile of activity, of business activity.
We're also supporting the companies related to coal industry so that they keep their jobs through changing the area of activity. When I go over to the activities related to the development of the and maintenance of the green competences, well, this is why we had a project related to energy in the earlier perspective. This was about requalifying those who used to work in the coal industry and other industry. And today we're talking about maintaining their jobs, but raising the competences of these people. So the next edition within this 2021-27 is going to be a project called Re-Energy. We are raising the skills and we are raising the competence and skills of our pupils and students. We have support for higher education. We, for example, have a Silesian interdisciplinary chemistry center to keep young people in our region, to give them a good place to study and work. This is a very precious resource to us, and as you know, we are also pushing a lot in this direction, and we get a very good support from the Just Transformation Fund. This is 450 million euros, also completed by the European Investment Fund. And we also want to reuse these post-industrial areas. Our voivodeship is very industrialized. We have very little green areas, and it's a pity, and we can use those areas for renewables. So we can give those post-industrial, post-coal mining areas a new use. In the coal pits, in the areas that were previously used by the industries. And these projects are very difficult, but very precious at the same time. So we could use the post-coal areas that used to deliver standard energy. We could use them to deliver renewables now. A lot is to be done ahead of us. It is a very tough but very interesting project. In order to implement it, we are running a database on the post-coal mining and post-industrial areas, and that suggests which areas should be developed. And we also want to include citizens in this process. We want the companies to feel the needs of the inhabitants. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the coal mine in Katowice and the International Trade or Fair Center, we've started the first project from the perspective 2007-2013, and we are ending it with the perspective 2021-27. So you can see that this is a hugely long period of time to hand over the area to the inhabitants, to use it for renewables. This is a very long time, and a lot of resources are needed to apply a complex approach to the arrangement of such an area. We also have an example where we have used this area for renewables. Bytom, the city, has given part of this land to the inhabitants. There are gyms and climbing walls, but the second part of this area is meant for renewables. When looking at what needs to be done to strengthen those actions related to clean technologies even further, to strengthen the renewables, it's definitely the enlargement and maintenance and maybe renovation of the energy grid. Also the use of post-coal areas for district heating and energy production. My ideal project in the post-mining area would be to use those post-mining resources to create green areas, and I know that it's possible. I've seen it with my own eyes, how this can be done, how district heating can be also used for that. I hope that we can also achieve this in our case. But what's also very important is social issues, the need to upskill our employees and to develop and to um, use the strategic documents to run this procedure and to create new procedures for the post-coal areas. And it is also very important to use public aid. There are many elements that are needed to implement all these processes very swiftly, and we should work on those strategic documents. We should work on the development of those documents. For me personally, a very important aspect is the issue of the Just Transformation Fund. I am very well acquainted with the EU funds, even from the pre-accession period, and I see how all these funds from the cohesion funds and the other funds have been used by our region for the transformation. And once we've received the Just Transformation Fund, this was a sort of a golden opportunity. This was the fund that was adapted to the needs of my region for the first time. This also answered my needs for the first time. I did not need to um, um, think of a way around. I did not think of changing the functions of these post-call areas. I've been actually supporting these post-call areas. I've been supporting big big producers, and I could do it using the big fund, mixing the soft targets with hard targets. I could adapt the funds for the real needs of the area, and there was also a very intensive aid meant for the people living in the post-mining areas. That was additional 10% from the Commission, because these areas are actually very tough to manage, and we see that we've launched already about 90% of the resources available within the fund. As for today, we've chosen about 70 projects, we've signed about 60 agreements, but we don't have enough payments yet. The tendering procedures are very tough. The entry threshold is very high. The terrain is difficult, so it's very often much more difficult to develop projects on brownfield in comparison to greenfield. So we need a lot of support. We need a lot of diversification. We need to shift the industry. We also need the shift in the human dimension. We've been talking to people. We have started a process of cafes. Where this is a process that is meant to meet the inhabitants and ask them what they think about the transformation. We told them that it's not the end, that this is something new. And we told them that what's inside in ourselves means that we'll always keep this industrialized characteristics. We are changing, we are talking about it, but we are still talking about what's our real core strength, the strength of our work, the strength of our local community. At the same time, these were actions for the entrepreneurs and for people, at the same time related to the environmental protection. So we very much hope that the funds for Just Transformation will be continued. We hope for it as a region, and I hope that it's not going to be related to the cohesion policy. We are lucky enough that we have three fund programs available, and managing those fund programs was adjusting to the needs of the region and to its strategy. And I think that in my professional career, this came to be truth. Although I have 5 billion euros to manage, that's quite a lot of money. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Margareta, for that opening speech. That was a very good start into the morning. As you may have noticed, I'm a number person and I love numbers and figures, and you managed to have both numbers and figures in a great overview. But when I listen to, even with translation, I feel it's something that's at your heart of making a change. So thank you for that. What I found clear and interesting in your presentation was that you strategically link the use of renewables, of environmental technologies, of renewables and clean energy with the industrial development, with the regional development. And this is just the topic that now we want to have a panel discussion on and really look at how can coal regions use renewables and clean energy to improve industrial competitiveness, and how can companies do that, and how, on the other hand, can this industrial development in the coal regions maybe a push for more renewables in the countries that their regions on. Having said that, I would like to welcome on stage the 5 panelists we have. I start with Ignacio Arsenio from the European Commission, from DG Ener. He's Policy Officer for Renewable Energies and System Integration, and he will give a little bit of a satellite overview of what is the framework, what is support from the European Union, European Commission. Please, Ignacio, you're the first one, you can pick a seat. Then we have Professor Michał Wieczorowski. He is, among others, president of the Polish Chamber of Hydrogen and was the former vice rector of Poznań University of Technology. Definitely very knowledgeable in the field of hydrogen and how the hydrogen economy can really be a support for value chain creation. And then we have Arthur Demers. Arthur is Senior Policy Officer at Solar Power Europe, so he coordinates advocacy work on EU level. He is not only a solar expert, but also a hydrogen expert and renewable hydrogen expert, so that could be an interesting debate among the two. And then I'm very happy to have 2 people who basically know a lot about regions and how it really is in the regions. Romania, please come up. You're already standing. Romania Goshcheva, she's Executive Director of the Regional Economic Development Agency of Stara Zagora, has led many initiatives for green economy diversification, job creation, and really supporting startups, clean tech startups. And last but not least, Vyacheslav Niekrzeczarov, he's the CEO of Bevchatov Kleshchov. I knew this one is going to be difficult, but Bevchatov is the other lignite mining region, the big lignite mining region, not Konin in Poland. And also he leads projects supporting the social and economic transformation of the region. And yeah, I'm going to ask you also how you do it, link that industrial development with energy. Does it work? Okay, you can still hear me. Where's Ignacio? Oh, here you are. We've heard a lot about the Just Transition Fund, the money that came. I don't want to go into the discussion on the Just Transition Fund, more forward-looking of what are frameworks on EU level that you see that are coming up that really support regions and coal regions, looking at clean industrial policy, renewable policy. What in your view is the important framework and how can it really support regions? And just before we start this, you have to second one. This is supposed to be a panel discussion. I'm going to ask you questions. If you speak longer than 2 minutes, I'm not going to be happy. So it's not presentations. I would love to have a discussion with you. So keep it short. The shorter you keep it, then the more of a chance you have, you get a second question. Big shot on content and format. Ignacio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tomin. I would first like to apologize because I will have to leave before the panel ends. I have to go to a train station. Look, in terms of industrial competitiveness, I would just like to say that simply, at least at national level, the cheapest electricity is renewable electricity. So this is always important to remind. And the main problem we have in the EU in terms of industrial competitiveness is that our energy prices are too high. So if you look at differences between electricity prices, average electricity prices across the European Union, you will see that the countries with the highest amounts of renewable generation are the countries with the lowest average prices, with the known exception of France, which is based on another solution. But generally, renewables will bring down prices, and it will even create situations, a rising number of hours with negative prices, which means that people are actually paid to take the electricity. So this is really a very important development that we need to keep in mind. And in countries where you have lower levels of renewable generation, like Poland, but this is changing quickly, as you mentioned before, and I'd like to mention that already last year was only 53% of the generation came from coal, while it was 70% just 2 years earlier. And I know that maybe 5 years ago, 7 years ago, nobody would have bet on that in Poland. So I think it just shows how fast things can go. And why they can go that fast? Because renewable investments are actually very attractive in a country that is dominated by fossil generation, because fossil generation leads to high electricity prices, which means that your solar or wind generation is going to be highly remunerated in the market. So you are in that sweet spot in which, because you still have high electricity prices, you can get the investments that will actually lower those electricity prices in the future. So this is really important to keep in mind. That's the supply side. At EU level, we had the Renewable Energy Directive. We have a target of 42.5% of all energy consumption to be renewable by 2030, and that pushes, of course, investments in deployment, either with public support or based on private interest as well through power purchase agreements. And of course, we have a lot of efforts in some areas that were mentioned in the previous presentation by Mishtas on permitting. We need to accelerate permitting clearly, and we need to ensure that the grid is there as well. The grid, what this situation is showing all around the European Union is that the grid is a scarce resource. Everybody wants the grid, right? So if you are in a region that has the grid, and have some renewable resources, then you are in a very good situation, I would say. Everybody wants the grid to inject renewable generation, but everybody wants the grid to also consume electricity. And so now what we are looking more at right now, so we are thinking about deployment, we are thinking about more generation, but we also think that we need to consume more of that renewable electricity, meaning that we also need to electrify part of our demand. So one element for industrial competitiveness as well is to think about switching more from fossil fuels to electricity as much as possible. This is very difficult for some industries, but very easy and feasible and cost competitive for other industries, especially with processes at lower temperatures like 200 degrees instead of 1000 degrees. And of course, there is electric vehicles, and there is heat pumps in residential areas. There is electric heating that can be used in heat networks that are very common in Poland as well. So a lot of different transformations that need to take place also on the demand side. So you put more renewables into the system, you lower the price of the electricity, and then you ensure that on demand side you consume more electricity, more of that renewable and as cheap as possible electricity, with some flexibility in the system so that you can take advantage of those very low price hours. This is how we see it, and we do see state aid. I'm just finishing. And we do see state aid that was mentioned as well. As part of that, there's going to be a new state aid framework that is going to be approved very soon, like ours. And I think one of the key ideas there is, yes, let's support the industry in this transition, but let's also demand from them that they invest in renewables themselves, and they invest in energy efficiency, and they invest in flexibility as well. So let's do all this together and go in the right direction. And I think by 2030, the situation will be very different in Poland and in the EU in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those insights. I mean, I take up a few points of what you've made. One, hey, the renewables are actually cheaper, which is a change to what we were discussing 10 years ago, or some people are even discussing now. The renewables are cheaper and are an option for cheap electricity. You said having the grid and having the infrastructure, I would find that interesting for coal regions to ask, is that a logo like we have the grid? Come to us, put your company in our place, we have the grid. And the third was, of course, well, 2 points is probably good enough. Okay, this sounds good from a Brussels perspective, sitting at an officer's desk, or from a researcher in Berlin, right? This is how we would think of how the world is. Now let's go to the real world in the region and asking you too. I mean, you're dealing with companies, you are dealing with supporting companies. When you, looking in your region, I'll start with you, Romania, and then go to Russia. When you are in your region, do companies really do that? Do they make an investment of renewables? Is that part of their strategy, or is that something like people like us have thought of at our desks in capitals, but it's not really happening on the ground?
First of all, thank you for this great opportunity to be here and to share about the region of Stara Zagora, the biggest region in transition on Balkans, and to say that I have not enough time to share because you give me only 2 minutes, and after that I shall leave earlier for the train station also. But actually what is happening in the region of Stara Zagora is that the just transition started more before the Green Deal idea, Europe to become the first CO2 neutral society on the planet, just because of the market reasons. Actually, the renewable energy sources is much more cheaper, and for the companies it's very important in order of their competitiveness to know their prices for electricity to be stable, but not some sudden unpleasant surprises about the higher prices of energy. So in the region, this transition started from the companies, big, not so big, SMEs. Part of them are investing some grant funding provided by rural program or by cohesion fund. It depends by which municipality is rural or urban. The big companies are investing their own funds or loans in order to have this predictable energy. And now, if in the near past, for example, 2 or a year ago, the energy mix to consist from 45% energy from lignites. Now it's different. I mean, the region is changing, the country is changing also. And in my opinion, these are very positive signs to our industry, to stakeholders, that we shall be more active in such kind of transformation. And also hydrogen. Stara Zagora is going to be the first hydrogen valley in Bulgaria, but not only also on Balkans. And the Stara Zagora Regional Economic Development Agency and European Digital Innovation Hub Zagore are supporting these efforts both for regional authorities or from companies, especially for hydrogen technologies deployment. And now we're starting a reskilling program for former miners and workers from TPPs to have new skills in order to deal with new technologies. And I'm sure that next year I'll be more happy to present some real and huge progress in this direction.
Okay, thank you. Bafta, question for, in your technology industrial park, are there examples too? And maybe a question, is that something companies do on their own? Do they have that in mind? Or is that something you have to tell them of, hey, this is a strategy, please have a look at it? Or do you have good examples of how companies, industrial companies work with renewables? And you will be speaking in Polish.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for having me on this panel with great guests, the great speakers on the panel. I represent the region, this region, the Bełchatów region, which is in central Poland. The symbol of this region is lignite, energy generation. This region was responsible for over 20% of power production in Poland, one of the transformation areas, coal plus areas. A lot of challenges are ahead of us. We don't impose things on companies. Companies actually recognize themselves what is happening on the market. They invest in photovoltaics, which they need for their daily energy needs. Also, energy storage and thermal modernization of production facilities. These activities are funded from their own funds, but also low interest loans, and also loans that some of them will not be needed. They'll not need to repay them. And for this region to keep developing, well, from the point of view of companies, striving towards net zero is one aspect, but the key aspect and a more important aspect for competitiveness is circular economy. This is the next step that will enable us to curb resource use. We then are able to use residual heat from production processes and use it for heating purposes. And we work with large companies all the way to small and medium-sized enterprises and small family-run businesses. Of course, for this to happen, we need support.
Extending the scope to the circular economy, I think, which is important, which I hate if someone does that, because I'm the energy expert and I know nothing about circular economy, but I think content-wise it is a valid point. Maybe, Arthur, I don't know, you're by profession, you have to be a solar expert, so how are companies using solar? And maybe just to share, I was part of the trip going to the geothermal power plant yesterday, and there were a few solar plants around the geothermal power plant. And I thought, looking at it, why do they have solar power plant? Well, it looks nice. Maybe they had a little bit of money, and then you know it's renewable, right? Because if you just have this building of a geothermal power plant, nobody what's in it, nobody knows it's green. You put a little bit of solar in it and it's like, oh, this is green, by the way. Did you notice? There's the solar power plant. But then in the presentation, it was not like the presenter did not say, we put this there because we think it's nice and important, but he said, actually, the key cost they have, running cost, is electricity, because they have to keep their pumps running all the time to pump up the heat. So to not, he didn't say reduce, but to get a grip on the costs of knowing what the costs are, they put in enough solar to cover 10%. Is that something you see? Maybe I'll start with, is that something you see? Do you have other examples? And then I have an even more tricky question. If you make your answer short, then I get the tricky.
All right, thank you. I'll make that answer as long as possible then. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's actually really great to be in Poland. It's, as you said before, it has raised to being a top 5 solar market in the EU now. It's really wonderful to see. It's a transition straight from coal to solar. And it's one of the great examples. If you want to be not surprised next time, you can go to solarpowereurope.org and see our market outlooks. So you know for the next few years what we expect. But yeah, it's a bit of a more complex picture than just having panels on your rooftop and that's it. But yeah, the other panelists have said it. Solar is now the most competitive source of energy in the world. It reaches historic lows now. And so it's more affordable than ever for consumers, including citizens, but also businesses, industrials, and everybody. It's also abundant, so we're now reaching 10% of used electricity mix with solar. So according to each country, everybody has a different energy mix, but it's more abundant than ever. We're in a world where now we install 65 gigawatts every year in Europe, and we want to reach 70 now to reach our EU target that Ignacio mentioned. It's going to be a game to be played between the governments and the companies. So the companies definitely have to get involved in the energy transition. It's not just going to come to them They can't just wait for that clean electricity to come to them, honestly, right now. But there's also a big opportunity to take here, as we said. So for the governments, there's a lot of incentive to give. So there's market signals to give to companies to switch from fossil fuels to electricity, including with energy prices. That's the first thing. If you have higher taxes for consuming electricity than you do for consuming gas, why the hell would you go to electricity? That's the first basic thing. It's still not approved everywhere in Europe, though. You also need some price signals to consume at a time where the electricity is most abundant. So again, we talked about flexibility. The industrial demand really, really needs to get into that, but that comes also with the incentives from the public. And here, the region, the city, the government, but also the EU all have roles to play there. And the EU has launched a fund also, and we're going to have to talk about funding also. It's the Industrial Decarbonization Bank, so it's basically a fund that you get a fixed premium if you move from gas or for fossil fuel to electricity consumption for every output that you have. And that is something we want to push, and we want to see whole of Europe do the same thing. So you get incentive for going to electrification, with also maybe a bonus maybe you could have for flexibility as well. But now that we said this, so the states and the governments and the regions have a big role to play. Now the industry, they have to get into this market. And we talked about it's going to have to be a mix. The technology is there. We talked about heat pump, electric arc furnaces. I think there's 60% of the technology for industrial electrification is already there, and then the rest is coming for below 500 degrees. It exists. There's contracts already there, so we talk about power purchase agreements. We work on it. We make template contracts, for example. We advise companies. We talk with them. Those things, it's a new thing for a lot of companies, but we see companies like Alcoa in the metals industry. We see BASF coming to it. We see companies more and more getting into those things. That means that you kind of have to have now an energy department that is really, really strong in your industrial company that they didn't have before. But that makes them take advantage of it. And with the PPA, it doesn't lower significantly your electricity prices, we have to say, but it lowers your volatility. And I think for a business, that's a really, really important case to be made. One example we have is in Spain, there's a chemical plant that needs the steam, and they take a mix. So they partner with the utility, the energy company. That's usually how it happens also. And the energy company has a mix of on-site solar with also PPA they grab from the market, from the grid. And then from that, they store electricity in the form of heated sand. So that's thermal storage. And whenever that is abundant, they also transform that into steam for the chemical process in a BASF factory there. And that's one of the solutions. Every solution is going to have to be individualized for the industry, but they can work, and you have to talk with the partners around you.
Thank you for this. I'm trying to make your life a little bit hard. Because Ignacio said grid integration is the key thing, right? If we look at that much of renewables that we have, grid integration is the new thing. I'm going to ask the question to Arthur. If I look at the chart I had, and if I look at whatever country in Europe, prices for electricity are very low at noontime as soon as the sun shines. So if I was a company and I was thinking, because you mentioned on-site solar, would you recommend it to me? Because immediately I would say, well, but if I look at noontime, prices are low. I'm just going to buy it from the grid. Why should I bother with having my on-site solar if the prices are low? I mean, you kind of sneaked your way out of my nasty question with storage already, but what would you say if I was a company coming to you? Do you have a good answer, or do you want to pass this on to one of the colleagues who work with the company?
Yeah, I mean, maybe you can complement, but it's going to have to be a different solution every time, I'm sorry. But the important thing for us is that they get into this market as well, and they see the advantage they have, and they get more expertise within the industry, and also we can help them, but it's going to have to be a mix. Just the fact that they start investing in renewables, either in long-term contracts with the PPA, it means that they are investing in their own project, but be it on their ground or elsewhere, yes, the difference is on the public, it's on the grid, but in the end for them it's already a huge step, and just having that is amazing. So it's going to probably have to be a mix for a big steel factory or big chemical factory, we still don't see like 100% renewables on site. That's unlikely to happen in the next few years. But at least if they already invest in those long-term contracts, that's huge.
So I'd like to add is that actually the matter of storage is very, very important in this process. And now in Starozagora we are running our just transition plan, supporting also industrial zones and SMEs and large companies. Actually, the region seems to me is the only in Europe which could support the large companies. And the storage is mandatory. But the next step, in my opinion, is a kind of energy community between businesses, between public and private buildings and entities, because consuming of energy is different between different stakeholders, different roles in the society. And for example, now we're preparing an energy community which to be funded under the just transition between several public buildings, state opera, regional library, some secondary schools, the city swimming pool, because during the day the consumption is higher in secondary schools and library, but during the evenings the consumption is higher in state opera and swimming pool. So to manage and producing energy is one of the most important topics that we shall focus on. And in this sense, the hydrogen is one of the good solutions that we could have as a storage of energy and using for some, even for green mobility, etc. And just to have the opportunity to say big thanks to Ecoris and especially for Robert Pollock and Paul Baker for their support for the region while we are preparing the strategy for diversification of the regional economy. 2 examples are given for us for hydrogen ZEPAC. I am very happy to visit it yesterday. And the other one was Groningen, I'm sorry. I have visited in October. Very good examples to be followed by the region and to looking for new solutions for the energy and how to manage and storage it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was obviously very welcome as a feedback. Hydrogen was mentioned, right? When we talk about grid integration of renewables, hydrogen obviously is an issue. I don't want to talk about the energy side of hydrogen, like how is hydrogen moving in the energy system, but more a little bit, when you think of Poland, where's the money? Where's the business model? Where's the value chain? Because yesterday, for example, just to give you a bit of an insight, we had a discussion on where there was a startup and a representative from a startup said, as a region, you need to specialize, right? You have to be excellent or forget it, you have to focus. So if now everybody wants to become a hydrogen region, it's going to be difficult. How do you see Poland? Where's the value chain? Where's the money also for coal regions in hydrogen?
I very much thank you very much for inviting me here and for the question. I very much like the question, where is the money? I hear it all the time. But regardless, I think hydrogen is one of the solutions that we can use, and it will not be, I think, a solution for the whole world, and it is nothing that will save the world, but it's just one solution that we can use in different regions of the world, depending on what we have. The very good side of hydrogen is that we can produce it everywhere. So we don't need coal, we don't need oil, which is in certain regions of the world, and we can just we need some water, for instance, we need electrolyzers, which is not the only way to produce hydrogen, but this is what we can do. And in Poland, I mean, we have like 3 levels. The first is the state levels, so the country level, where we also have an international cooperation. And on this level, there's a lot of things going on with hydrogen. So we are a partner of this Nordic pipeline that comes from Finland to Germany. And we also develop our own strategic, regardless the pipelines in Poland. So where we have regions where we can produce a lot of energy, more energy than we need in this region. And can we store it as a hydrogen? Can we then transport it to any other regions? Or should we move industry to the regions where we have more energy? So it's also very interesting to do this energy transfer. And then we have regional level, which I think is now the most important ones. We are in Wielkopolska region that is very, very strongly oriented into hydrogen. and which is very good in this region that people, the authorities here, like in Konin, for instance, they very early realized that it's not good to stay with coal and with the fossil fuels, and we have to transfer into new energy sources and into energy storing and all these kind of things. So, like in Silesia region and all the other regions, there's a lot of going on. The local authorities think, how can we transfer, how we can produce more energy, how can we store it? And then the third level is the level of just regular people, of all of us, when we all think the cost of energy is quite high, hydrogen, the cost of 1 kilogram of hydrogen is quite high, what can we do, and when will we be ready to transfer ourselves to hydrogen? Well, we already have a lot of photovoltaics at homes, and I think this is the matter also of some subsidies, because this is what was blooming in Poland. The photovoltaic was blooming when we got very, very, I would say, beneficial conditions to buy it and to install it, and then we knew that renewables are really cheap, yeah? Because you have always to calculate capex and opex, and this is important. Thanks.
You mentioned a little bit bypassing that, oh, maybe industry moves to where the hydrogen is or moves to where the renewables is, moves to where the grid is. So this could be, don't get me started on this, we probably need 2 hours to discuss that, how industries would move around in Europe or even outside of Europe. Do they go to where the renewables is, and how can we influence those movements or non-movements which we want? Okay, now we're at a crucial point. We have probably 2 more hours for us to discuss on stage, but I think formally we have 10 more minutes. So this is why I would ask, are there questions online or are there questions in the room? If you have questions, raise your hand, you get a microphone, and we're happy to hear your question. If you don't have a question, we're happy to discuss among ourselves. I think easy, next 2 hours will be set for questions. But are there questions either online, Yanis, or in the room? Go, there's a question online, please.
Thank you. Also for the online audience, this is for the Slido, the reminder of how to do the slides, but we do have one question. It's about the energy prices. So this statement saying, I think most important is to lower energy prices for competitiveness. Is there one thing you could do to lower prices? Like, what would that be?
Who does the question go? Or does
I think it's an open question.
Open question. Does anyone want to respond, or do we not want to answer that question? How?
Well, as I said,
Go ahead.
You need investments in renewables. That's the first thing. Then there was your nasty question about what happens when you have enough renewables, and then that's probably storage, that you need to have more and demand flexibility. So these, I think. Then, of course, the problem is that the system becomes more complex to manage, of course. So what we call system costs can rise as well. So there has to be a specific attention in this transition to make the right investments in grid and in operation of the system to ensure that the system costs do not explode, essentially, to keep prices down. Of course, another thing you can do is to work on the different energy carriers. There are, of course, a set of taxes and charges and tariffs that make electricity more expensive than it probably should, or, as you wish, coal or gas cheaper than it probably should. So there are also other ways to balance the different energy carriers through taxes or charges.
Okay. Maybe, Romania, after, if this question of bringing down the energy costs from a company perspective, I mean, okay, one, you maybe buy solar or you buy power purchasing agreement, but the companies have, I mean, what Ignacio just said, flexibility, storage. In some of the processes, companies would have the potential to work more flexible, but why? It's hard enough to produce the product that I want to produce. Then on top of, I should just work when electricity prices are low. Do you have any experience? Do you discuss that with companies? Is there an openness? Do you have to drag them to do this? Are they do they want to know about it? What is the status when you speak to?
Actually, they are very open for new technologies to be introduced in order to reduce the energy consumption, energy prices, etc., and to cooperate more between them, which is, for me, is a significant progress, because till 2 years ago in the region, transition was almost forbidden word. But now the business is the drive of this transformation, this transition, and a lot of investment was also doing in energy efficiency, not only building, but also equipment, system between smart local grids, collaboration in the energy producing, consuming, management between, etc. And it's a good sign that such kind of solutions could be very good introduced in businesses also. And what the Digital Hub Zagori is doing now is also to support businesses in simulation, such kind of solutions before test, before invest. Is it worth to invest some additional money in such kind of smart local grids and cooperation between companies in order to be more independent and to have predictable energy prices? So yes, it's possible, but the business shall be supported either by funding or either by legislation changes in order to support such processes.
When you say simulation, do you really mean playing costs through? So this is a new sort of service consultancy that companies would need, right? Because not every company can do that on their own.
Yes, we're providing such kind of services for free for SMEs and startups and public entities, and they're paid for large companies. But yes, European Digital Innovation Hub Zagori is providing such kind of test before invest services, and this is one of the solutions that the companies are needed on spot to be more brave to invest.
Okay, perfect.
Ceny energii to jest jakby efekt.
Well, energy prices is the end result, but from the point of view of what I know about the company, about how we cooperate with other companies, it is of key importance to have the energy prices stable in order to achieve the stable energy price. If companies will know what the energy is going to cost in a half a year, then the investment is going to be much easier. So for the transformed area, it's of key importance. If companies won't know what the price is going to be in half a year, they won't invest. Simple as that. They'll cease to invest. In order to stabilize the energy prices, we need to include one of the elements mentioned by the professor, meaning we need the hydrogen, and within transformation, these can be additional elements like special laws or special encouragements, incentives in creating green industry areas.
Yes, please.
It's, I think, a very good idea to reduce the energy prices is to think about what we call energy collectives, and this is what we as a Polish Chamber of Hydrogen support very much. So it's a kind of society where we produce energy and we use it in a group of companies or people just locally, being quite independent from the grid. And I think it's a good way to lower down the energy prices.
Thank you. A quick look at the referee. We've given 5 minutes overtime for this session. So if there's one more question from the audience, we could take one more question. Is there a question? 2, 1. Carsten, you're back. Then one question, please.
Hi, thank you for this very interesting discussion. Just while we have a representative of the Commission here, sorry, I should introduce myself, Mags from WWF. In Brussels, we hear a lot about the Clean Industrial Deal, and the discussion is often largely around which technologies and which sectors. And we're very interested in how the competitiveness agenda and the Clean Industrial Deal can meet the cohesion objectives of the EU. So I wonder if there's any insights you could offer in terms of the upcoming files, because there's a lot under the Clean Industrial Deal, where we should be looking to make sure that we can have some geographical perspective, some territorial lenses within the Clean Industrial Deal concept. Thank you.
Framework question to you.
That's a difficult question.
You have 2 minutes. That's easy.
Now, the Clean Industrial Deal is to a large extent about improving competitiveness through industrial transformation and decarbonization, right? We have mentioned briefly the relative advantages that different regions or member states can have in terms of attracting industries. But the truth is that the vast majority of industry is not very mobile, right? Some industries can really change. Some industries will be new, and there will be a lot of in the clean tech sector that will be new. So you have to pay attention to what you can offer those industries to localize in your different regions. But overall, I think a large part of the effort has to be into maintaining the existing industries and supporting them into decarbonizing and really looking at the different options that they have for competitive decarbonization.
Thank you. Good. Thank you, everyone. That was more of a snapshot from very different perspectives on a highly complex topic. And I think we just touched upon some of the things where I would love to go into more depth. If you feel the same, grab one of the speakers in the coffee break. If you don't like to give the answers, just run away. But I think, as my guess would be, they would be love to chatting with you. We'll continue. Before we go, can we have one more slide? The next slide is we have a little bit of advertisement within the Secretariat of the Core Regions in Transition Initiative. There has been several publications. There's an updated toolkit on technology options. There's a new toolkit on economic diversifications. And some of the things that we touched upon here, not in the detail, but some of the things are addressed. So have a look. With that, I hand over to you for where do we go next, correct? Thank you for the speakers and maybe a big applause.
Thank you so much, Simon, for a wonderful moderation and for all the exciting inputs. I very much welcome you to a coffee break now, and I still have a very nice announcement. Our organizers, the Wielkopolska region, has kindly prepared gifts for us. You may have seen, and some of you might have grabbed already, backpacks with Wielkopolska logo, just to remind all of us of this wonderful time together. So if you have not picked up your backpack and you might be leaving or you do it later, please do. It's a lovely recollection of our time together. We will be meeting again at 11:15. Please feel free to leave the, again, the gear for interpretation here. If you're coming back for the sessions after the coffee break, if you're leaving, please make sure to return it and deregister. Thank you and see you in a moment. There's a lot of waving. Am I starting or not? Yes, okay, because the signs are not coming across. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone in the room and welcome our dear colleagues online. We are happy to continue with the program. It's going to be our last expert session with the content inputs, but I think a lot is happening throughout the breaks and we have accompanying events going forward. So the last session will be focusing on a topic that is close to my heart and close to many of our hearts, which is reskilling and supporting the communities and the miners so they can continue being part of economy and contributing to economies. We will be having our experts and moderators with us in a moment shortly. But I am thrilled as well for with the addition that we are introducing just now. The two gentlemen with us here, they will be introducing themselves in a moment in Polish, so please be prepared with the interpretation kits. They are really a beautiful example of a successful reskilling or investment in the miners. They are from SAT Industry Social Cooperative. You might have spotted a drone displayed in the ground floor. And this is really a moment for them to tell the story a little bit and encourage you and invite you to engage with them. So zapraszam panów na scenę, pan Adam i pan Sebastian.
Welcome to the stage, Mr. Adam and Mr. Sebastian. Welcome, my name is Sebastian Biernacki. This is my colleague Adam Feliksik. Together we represent the social collective stud industry. Below we have a presentation of our idea on what's going to happen after coal in our region. Our proposal is a huge technological leap from coal mining to a product that could be applied all around the world in many industries. And this is an autonomous flying vehicle. So something that could be used probably anywhere, in the military, in medicine, for private use. So all who are interested, please come down to us later, and I'll tell you shortly about our company. Our collective has been created from a group of people who've been laid off from our local coal mine in Konin. And thanks to the support of various institutions, we've managed to open this collective, and we function officially from the 1st of January this year. We are doing fine for now. We have plenty of strength and ideas to develop. So welcome downstairs. Thank you very much, and congratulations on your great project. And fingers crossed.
A moment downstairs and get acquainted with the technology and the people behind it. And now I would like to ask Robert Pollock, who I think is known to everyone, who might be the face of just transitioning the regions and how the European Commission has been investing in expertise being available to the regions. So Robert, kindly, if you can join us. Robert will be moderating a session on reskilling skills in investment in skills, which we have heard so much is important to all of us. Again, we will have probably inputs in many languages, so to make sure you can listen, stick to your headsets here in the rooms, and stick to interaction all the colleagues online. And we are hoping for your engagement as well, so be ready to engage through Slidos. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and delighted that you've come back from coffee for what is the second session of Ask the Expert. So we had one Ask the Expert session yesterday, and today we have our second one. As Jagoda said, I'm Robert Pollock, and I'm a senior advisor with the EU's co-regions in transition, and part of a wonderful team who have been delivering in co-regions over the last 6.5 years. So for those of you who joined us yesterday, you'll be familiar with the format of Ask the Expert. It gives you an opportunity to ask targeted questions at experts. And as Jagoda said, our topic today is skills. So rather than a traditional panel whereby I ask a series of preset questions, we do encourage you to submit questions via Slido. And in that way, the panel can then respond to your specific questions and to your priorities. So in a moment, I'll be handing over to Andrea Broughton for a framing speech, and then we'll move on to the live discussion. So to prepare yourself for the live discussion, do use Slido. Simply post your questions on Slido, either by scanning the QR code, which is on the screen, or writing the code #dialogue at slido.com. It's very straightforward. However, I do implore you, if you have a specific question for one of the panel, please identify who the question is, because we do have a range of experts and insights on the skills agenda. So try and be as focused as possible with your questions. As Jagoda mentioned, this session focuses on a topic that is critical to the success of Europe's energy transition, and that is skills. It is vital in the process of transition within coal plus regions that we do get the skills agenda right in the short term, medium term, and long term. I was quite taken by Teresa Ribera's remarks yesterday from the European Commission, the Vice President, that coal communities are the backbone of transition in Europe. They are the fundamental drivers of transition, and the data shows that. It is coal communities who have done the most in phasing out carbon dioxide from the burning of coal. And Teresa Ribera was saying, well, given that so much effort has been done by the coal communities, it's only fair that we actually take care of the people, take care of the affected communities. And the best way of doing that is through reskilling and upskilling. And I think all of us are aware that coal communities, coal economies actually represent a fantastic resource of skills. You know, you have engineers, you have civil engineers, structural engineers, electrical engineers, you have geologists, you have hydrologists, you've got fabricators, you've got electricians, you've got ICT experts, you've got logistics. I could keep going. Now, these are fantastic skills concentrations, skills clusters that we have to reinvent, reimagine through upskilling and reskilling. And my final comment before I hand over to Andrea is just to zoom out. And I think it's fair to say that you can see with every stage of modern industrial development, workforce development has been critical. So with the Industrial Revolution, there was the division of labor. With mass production, mass manufacturing, there was Fordism. Then with globalization came new processes, new standards, such as Six Sigma and ISO. And we're now at a new epoch of industrial development with AI and digitalization. So we really have to reimagine what we mean by upskilling and reskilling for our workforces. And we're at that critical juncture of economic history where we have to get this right for the European Union. So before Andrea sets the scene with her keynote speech, I would like to actually introduce the panelists. So I'm delighted that we have got a fantastic lineup today to discuss the question of retraining and reskilling in co-regions. So I would like to first invite to the panel Fruzina Sonka. Please come to the panel. Fruzina is the Public Affairs Manager at the Inno Energy Skills Institute, has played a key role in the design and deployment of the Net Zero Industry Academies, a vital instrument policy tool, and she's especially experienced in aligning workforce training with industry needs, such as in the areas of batteries, hydrogen and solar. So welcome to the panel, Fruzina. The second person I'd like to invite to the panel is Ryszard Zzinski. Ryszard is the Deputy Director of the Regional Labour Office in Poznan, so nearby. And he brings hands-on insight into how public administrations are delivering regional training policies on the ground. And he's very involved with the program Jobs After Coal. And that is a program that is very much at the heart of the reconversion of the Eastern Wielka Polska, the Konin economy. So an ideal panelist for us today. The third panelist I would like to introduce is Selda Stansua. Selda is a project manager at RenewAcad. And this is a retraining program for former co-workers in Romania, focusing on their skill needs for wind power. With over a decade of experience of managing EU-funded projects, she understands how to bridge the supply of green skills with industry demand. And I must say, I've been to your facilities in the Jiu Valley and Gorge, and I am very impressed by what you're doing in terms of the reconversion of coal mining skills for green renewables, so welcome. The final panelist is Michael Polo, and Michael is Program Director of Skills for Recovery at GIZ and leads an ambitious training program in Ukraine focused on green and digital skills. He brings global experience in vocational education and training and private sector development from the fragile contexts like Afghanistan and Iraq. So I think Michael brings a different perspective, but a very useful perspective to this discussion of delivering skills in a very dynamic environment. So you now know who the panelists are, so do think about submitting your questions in Slido, use the QR code, etc. So I'm not going to repeat myself because I think you're well aware of it now. But finally, I would like to say that I'm delighted that we have Andrea Broughton to provide the framing speech for the contribution. Now, Andrea is a director at Chorus, very much involved in the whole policy arena of employment, labour market restructuring and skills transitions, and knows a lot about the policy but also the practicalities. And her experience spans more than 2 decades, and she has a lot of experience in the Coal Plus regions, and we've worked very closely with her in Karlovy Vary, Malopolska, Megalopolis, Midlands. So delighted to have Andrea here today. And her remarks will provide very useful strategic context and set the wider policy framing for today's discussion. So I'll hand over to you now, Andrea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. Hello, everybody, and it's really good to be here. So I'm going to give the framing speech for this panel session. We've heard quite a lot over the past couple of days about energy transition and competitiveness, so it's really good to be able to have a session devoted to skills. Because, as Robert's been saying, and I'm sure we'll discuss further, ensuring that workers have the right levels of skills to be able to work in the new economy that's coming, the new transition economy, is really key. It's key for competitiveness, but it's also key to ensuring a just and fair transition in which nobody is left behind. Robert mentioned the work I've been doing with the coal regions, and it's true for the last few years I've been involved in some of the work in some of the regions and helping communities to upskill and reskill workers. And what I've seen from that, thinking about the initiatives in place to help former coal miners or people involved in the peat harvesting sector in Ireland, for example, is that it's a complex process to put into place something to support these communities. It involves a lot of stakeholders, it involves a lot of regional sensitivities and issues, and it's a long process. You need a lot of patience. However, it's really worth it, and we've seen a lot of, it's been very fruitful. I think that it's starting to bear fruit now, so it is worth it, and it really does change lives. So I'm just going to frame this discussion by just giving you a very quick overview of the ongoing EU flagship initiatives around skills for energy transition. So mentioning just some of the key actions that the European Commission has been taking. So the first one, we've already mentioned, the Net Zero Industry Academies. And these are modular EU-wide academies. They're not actual buildings, but they're projects, collaborations between various stakeholders who work together to develop training content, so materials and programs. These are then rolled out locally through local training providers. They can be businesses, vet providers, so vocational education training providers, or the social partners as well, for example, trade unions. They also develop credentials for voluntary use in member states, which means that it helps when people want to transfer from one job to another or even cross-border. So the first one was launched in 2024, so they're quite recent. That was in solar photovoltaic, and that follows the example of the initiative in the Batteries Academy 2 years earlier. And so each academy its target is to train 100,000 workers within 3 years of their launch across different types of technologies, so solar, batteries, hydrogen, wind and raw materials. So that's the Net Zero Academies. The next initiative is the Clean Industrial Deal, and it's the skills and quality jobs pillar of the Clean Industrial Deal. And this is linked to the Union of Skills that was launched in March this year. So this initiative has up to 90 million euros from Erasmus+, and it helps to support employers in accessing the expertise that they need to make sure the economy is competitive. It helps also to reinforce particularly sectoral skills linked to the Clean Industrial Deal and support quality jobs and provide support to workers in transition, so an important initiative. The third one there is the Pact for Skills. This is an EU flagship model initiative, and it's a shared engagement model, so involving different types of stakeholders. It was launched 5 years ago in 2020, and it's already trained 6.1 million people through 3,200 member organisations, and that's rising all the time. And as part of that, there are 20 large-scale skills partnerships in specific sectors, and I'll come on to that in my next slide in a while. And members have pledged to upskill and reskill 25 million workers by 2030. So that's a big and ongoing and very successful, I think, initiative. Something that was mentioned yesterday, it's not been launched yet, is the European Fair Transition Observatory. And this has been established to collect data for the Clean Industrial Deal, for the skills section of that. And it will focus on mapping out relevant policies, best practices, and collecting data on skills needs, skills demands. And it will take all of this data and produce thematic analyses and reports. So there's that to look forward to. That'll be a very important initiative when it comes on stream. And then there are two new and upcoming initiatives here. So there's the STEM Education Strategic Plan that was launched this year in March. and that aims to address challenges in science, technology, engineering, and maths, so STEM subjects, as part of the Union of Skills strategy. And then the final one is the Skills Portability Initiative. That will be launched next year under the European Strategy for Vocational Education and Training. And that aims to make it easier to recognise and accept skills and qualifications across the EU. So it's a lot going on there and a lot to look forward to. So what skills are needed for the energy transition? We can take a moment just to look at the types of skills that are in demand and are needed. And this is insights from the Pact for Skills that I mentioned just earlier. So Pact for Skills, one of the flagship actions of the EU skills agenda, and it aims to support public and private sector organisations with reskilling and upskilling in the context of the twin green and digital transitions. And as part of this, we have these large-scale skills partnerships, LSPs, where partners come together to cooperate and invest and provide upskilling and reskilling opportunities. So they can be social partners, academic partners, different types of stakeholders. And under the Pact, they are supported by the Commission with access to information on upskilling and reskilling needs, sources of funding for projects, and partnership opportunities. So it's an ongoing support system for these LSPs. And my company, Ecaris, has been working with the European Commission over the past 5 years to implement the Pact for Skills. So we're very involved in this. So I asked, when I knew I was coming to speak here, I asked my colleagues what were the skills needs in the LSPs that they work very intensely in. And so these are some of the insights from my colleagues. So the first one that's relevant to us would be the energy-intensive industries. So that's raw materials, manufacturing of products with a high environmental impact, such as chemicals, iron and steel, and cement. And the skills needs there, it's anything to do with green technologies, so new green technology, energy efficiency, circular economy, so waste management and recycling, automation of processes, industrial digitalization. So lots of these skills, they're quite overlapping. Some are very specific, some are more general and apply to many of the sectors. The next one, digitalization of the energy system. So obviously, as expected, the skill needs here are digital skills. So that can be a wide range of things. So data monitoring, skills to do with remote control, working with smart systems, software development, all of those things. In the offshore renewable energy LSP, the skill needs there focus on what's needed to service the emerging ocean energy technologies. So that's wave power, tidal and offshore solar power. And these are things like engineering skills, so anything to do with the electrical skills needed to put into place these systems, structural skills to build them and maintain them, and skills to adapt them for decarbonisation, and of course, digital skills as well. In the renewable energy sector, the skills needs tend to centre on technical skills, green skills, which covers really a multitude of things. That can be things like engineering and technical skills, science-based skills, operation management skills and monitoring skills, so a whole range of things depending on what's needed, and advanced digital skills as well, and skills to do with with photovoltaic operation and maintenance. And then finally there, under Pact for Skills, so the construction LSP, and the skills here would be related to energy efficiency, so adapting buildings or building new buildings that are energy efficient, and decarbonising households, so that's retrofitting of buildings, very much in demand. And then the final bullet point there is, it's not an LSP, but it's very relevant, so critical raw materials value chain skills needs, and they focus on skills related to mining, extraction, metallurgy, alloying, circularity, and also more general skills, so transversal skills such as digital skills and environmental, social and governance skills. So that's a quick trip around what the EU is doing to support the transition and the sorts of skills that are in demand. I'll hand back to the panel now, which is going to discuss the challenges and the issues around implementing this skills agenda. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. That was an excellent whistle-stop tour of the policy context in which we are operating, so thank you for that. As Andrea said, we're now moving into the panel discussion, so I'm looking forward to getting into the detail of what this actually looks like on the ground, this skills agenda. But I am going to repeat myself. Please post your questions by scanning the QR code or writing #dialogue@slido.com. So as I said, it's now time to get the show on the road, so to speak, and get into the detail of this subject. And my first question is for Zina. Now, Andrea opened her overview of the sort of large flagship policies with net zero academies. Now, this is something you're quite familiar with. So just to bring it into the context of our CO+ communities, how can workers from CO+ regions benefit from the training available, especially under the net zero academies?
Very good question. And first of all, thank you for having me and having us here. It's a pleasure to be in Poland. I actually used to live here for quite some time, so it's nice always to be back. And indeed, Net Zero Industry Academy is trying to make it a bit more practical. I think we do recognize that a lot of initiatives and concepts which are coming from Brussels and the European Commission can be sometimes a bit challenging to really understand on the ground how to use it, how to implement it. So let's break it down a bit more in a practical terms. Net Zero Industry Academy, the point of them was to create a framework, an institutional framework, to focus on skills intelligence, to understand what a certain evolving sector within the energy space needs now and in the future, understand the trainings, the materials, the curriculums which are out there in Europe, try to manage some type of cohesion to it and harmonizing it to some extent, work with member states and local stakeholders, training providers, experts, small, medium enterprises, and localize whatever can be localized and bring it down to the ground, if you wish. I mean it in the best way. Because in the end of the day, the concept is to make sure that people in the European member states can utilize and benefit from the academies. Now, the first one was the battery concept, the Battery Academy, which Inno Energy, the company I work for and represent, was lucky enough mandated to run. So what we started doing 3.5 years ago is to understand what skills we really need. Everything which Andrea was just describing a few minutes ago, it was really hard a few years ago. Because in the evolving, very, very quickly evolving European battery sector, we didn't really even know what exactly we need. The private sector did, or do, but it doesn't mean that we're speaking the same language. A certain battery cell producer might call a battery cell engineer, but another competitor company might call it differently. So then, how we can understand if I have workers who are transitioning out of declining sectors, what skills they have, what skills these companies should require, and how I can bridge that gap and help people to get other jobs. So we started building serious skills intelligence. That also sounds like a buzzword, and yes, it does include a lot of AI work and a lot of so-called scrolling on LinkedIn and understanding job profiles and all of that, competencies. But in reality, we're trying to really break it down. What are the learning journeys getting from A to B? So Skills Academy is the first one. The batteries was focusing on storage, grid, everything which has been discussed even today before, the importance of grids, the importance of storage, mobility and stationary as well. Integration of storage to the grid, extremely crucial. That was point one. Now we are focusing on solar, where the challenge is very different. We also just talked about solar a couple of minutes ago. When it comes to the solar PV sector, there's a lot of content out there. There are a lot of training providers. There's know-how. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. And that is so important. So what we're trying to do is to understand what's available, harmonize it, and then we are tapping into a very, very sensitive and challenging discussion on certifications to actually accreditate or to somehow accept and utilize the trainings which are out there. Because in the end of the day, you can reskill, you can try to help your local community, but if the employer will not recognize a non-formal education, because now this is what we're discussing, we are moving away from formal education, and that's the true nature of lifelong learning right now. We need to make sure that whatever is being taught, online, face-to-face, in labs, however, it's being assessed, understood, and accepted to be used. So this is one of the things which we do. I think I'm at time.
Your timing is perfect. You were spot on. Well done, Frazina. So it's very much about net zero academies bring cohesion, harmonization, standardization, and utility for application in the real world. So I think we'll probably get more questions about this because it is a very exciting topic. But I would now like to turn to Rijard on my right-hand side. Rijard, obviously you're very involved in the transition process of the labour market in Konin. So just to bring it home very much to this geographic location, which challenges are you encountering when implementing training and reskilling initiatives in Konin in Eastern Wielkopolska, please?
Dziękuję bardzo. Szanowni Państwo, ja myślę, że każdy projekt.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that each and every project related to granting support for employees who are leaving the coal mining sector will be different because it's going to be implemented in a different place, in a different community, with facing different challenges. As for the road to employment after coal, its grand achievement is that it's been created in cooperation between the social party, meaning the labor unions and the employees of the mining industry who've been preparing the assumptions of this project in cooperation with the entrepreneurs who are undergoing a transformation. And on the other hand, regional self-governments with its units who are implementing this program. Currently, they also cooperate with a partnership meant for this project, and we are the main beneficiary of it as a labor office in Poznań. So it's a joint project tailor-made for the needs arising. The first challenge, and I won't be mentioning all the challenges, but I'll be mentioning the not realized opportunities, how I'd like to call them. So this first opportunity that could not have been accomplished is the not implementation of all the assumptions of this project because of changing reality in Europe. When we've been preparing this project, we've been preparing it on the basis of assumptions from before 2022. So from before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the energy sector situation was quite different. Together, our group is a still required energy producer in the region, and that is why it has shifted the layoffs of the employees because of the new circumstances, and we had to adapt it to our program. This was the first big challenge we had to face, but we are managing well. This cooperation runs smoothly, and we are waiting for concrete decisions to be made. The second challenge is the region specific. This is the conviction of those who live here, who work in the coal or in the lignite industry, their families to think that this project is meant for them, that this is a good and efficient solution and it is going to bring the right fruits. But that's also an opportunity that we try to take advantage of. Currently, we'd like to invite 2,200 people to this project and already 500 people working within the project. The next unused opportunity are the barriers that appeared during the project. It's related to different regulations restricting our activities. These are the European regulations, and you all know them. The Just Transformation Fund restricts the ability to invest in reuse of fossil fuels for our region and for the employees from leaving the mining sector. This is a huge challenge because it means that not all types of commercial activities can be launched. Not all can be implemented. And very often it is so that this regulation is sort of overkill because let's have an example. In welding or building a particular structure, we need to use fuel devices that use fossil fuels. And in case of our program, we could not be doing that. But we hope for some good attitude from the Commission to support these projects and exclude them from these governing rules. Now, the second specific of the program, we see that bigger employers would like to enter the market and employ a bigger group of employees through this program, but then the amount of social aid is an issue. And these are other issues that are going to accompany us throughout the project. But what's the biggest opportunity and what we would like to take advantage of is the cooperation within the region, between the self-governments, between the partners from the public and private sector, and those who are mostly interested which is the public.
Thank you, Richard. I must say from personal experience, I know how much effort is being put into partnership working in Eastern Wielkopolska, and it is commendable. And I liked your term, unrealized opportunities rather than challenges. I think that put a very positive spin on things, but I am aware of some of the administrative hurdles that you are facing and hopefully will be addressed. I'd now like to turn to Zelda. Perhaps you could tell the audience today and online, what is the Renew Academy and how does it support former co-workers, and what are perhaps the lessons that can be replicated, for other areas in Europe. So please, Zelda.
So, Renew Acad, it's a project, it's a national project in Romania. It's led by Monson Group. What we do is we help people that are from the coal regions, but not only them, to reskill and upskill for the green energy sector. So we train them in photovoltaic, in wind, and in energy storage systems. We trained over 1,000 persons from the coal regions. This is free training. And we also help them get a job in the industry. So what we do is we assist them in their journey. So from the reskilling and upskilling, we do individual counseling, and afterwards we try to get them hired in the industry. And also it's very important that curricula and the trainings are always up to date, because the energy industry is always in change and evolving. So we have a very tight collaboration with our Romanian Industry Association, Wind and Solar. So we always understand the need, so they will have new and up-to-date skills. One of the, I think the second question was about the difficulties we found and how so what you can replicate in other regions. Okay. So for the former miners, I think the biggest constraint is psychological and sociological problems, like can they do something new. They always knew mining is going to be their future, and they come from generation of miners. So how can they find a place in the changing world? So what we do individual counseling, and we do site visit, so they can actually see what is like working in a wind farm. And we took a miners and went to on a turbine, and they went upstairs and saw the world different, because they work, I think, in bigger height underneath than a wind farm, but they don't fully understand, because they they see it's coal and walls. They don't see the real depth of the workspace.
Thank you, Selda. And I must say, it is quite a practical approach you have adopted. We've been very impressed by the two centres we've visited. And I liked your reference to the psychological barriers and the perceptions of changing in the labour market for people in the coal mining industry. And you know, how counselling and site visits is a way forward on addressing these kind of barriers. Michael, I'd like to now turn to you, please, if I could. Obviously, you work for Skills for Recovery Ukraine, and I'd like to explore how are you bridging the skills gaps in Ukraine. And this is, I think it's brilliant you're on the panel, because obviously you're working in an environment that's incredibly fluid. You know, labour markets are fluid at the best of times, but you're in a very unique situation. So it'd be interesting just to get your thoughts on some of the sort of key lessons that you think can be transferred over to our policy context. So please, Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you. Let me first state in the beginning that Ukraine's economy is continued to function despite the war and despite missile attacks. I think this is exactly due to the resilience of the Ukrainian people. They go to work every day, they enjoy their coffee break, and they're also happy when the working day is over. However, the future of Ukraine's economy really depends on the availability of the skilled workforce, and their skills really matter. Let me give you two examples. Firstly, Ukraine is really facing a labor shortage crisis. 6 million people left the country in 2022 when the war got started. Men are mobilized into the army, the population is aging. And at the same time, Ukraine is also facing a skill mismatch, I think, like all European countries. So Ukrainian people and the whole economy needs to deal with a green and digital transition. And I think dealing with these two challenges requires really a holistic approach. So young people need to be trained, even despite the war, but also adults need to be provided opportunities for reskilling and upskilling. And Ukraine also has the task to integrate ex-competence, to activate women and even elderly people for the labor market. And I think this is really the aim of what we are doing with our program, Skills for Recovery. I would just like to mention that we are working in a Team Europe approach. So it's not Germany alone. There is the EU on board. There is Poland on board, Estonia. Together with Germany, we are implementing this program. Just shortly what we are doing. I think we are listening to the economy. We are identifying needs. We are strengthening the training system, and we are building a path from training into the labor market. I think this is really an important aspect here as well. Another support area is the support of the EU accession. Ukraine has been granted the status of a candidate country here. And what we recognize here in the discussion with the Ukrainian ministries is they are in the same transition also like EU member states, looking particularly on the green and digital transformation of its economy. And for Ukraine, EU strategies and policies are fixed points there. However, in this transition, Ukrainians are saying it's not a nice to have to do this green and digital transition. It's a must, even they call it a matter of survival for themselves. The reason is that for the green transition, Ukraine is facing currently increasing energy prices, so there is no other opportunity and pathway than to reduce dependence on fossil fuels, increase renewables, and improve energy efficiency. And just looking on digitalization, there's a lack of workforce, so there need to be investment into digital skills to automate and to improve productivity for companies. And in all of these matters, skills are crucial.
Thank you, Michael. That was a very succinct response to quite a complex topic. And I think it's really important to remember that there is this green transition going on in Ukraine. There is the green industrial deal being pursued there as well that very much aligns with our agenda. So there is a great symmetry. We do have quite a number of questions coming in, which I'm delighted to say. One of the questions is in regard to service provision to people affected by transition, coal miners and coal power plant workers, etc. And it is, how do we design training that meets the ambitions of the trainee, their personal ambitions, but also meets with the needs of the economy? So, Fruzina, I'd quite like to ask you that question, and then perhaps I could also ask Selda that question. So please.
That's a tricky one, isn't it? I would say that we need to categorize two very different problems and challenges here. And I don't like to call it problems, but I do acknowledge the difficulty of the exercise. And the first one is that I'm going to first focus on the job market and the private sector, not only, but primarily here, industry. We cannot really change what is needed of us to have a job. So therefore, really understanding what Selda was mentioning, really understanding what is needed is critical. And maybe a year ago or so, I had a discussion in the Czech Republic, someone from a utility, and had this discussion, how do you actually communicate with your employees, with your workers, who you know that they're going to be phased out in their current jobs, in the current site where they are, a year from now? And how do you go and tell them that we do not want to lose you as a worker? We also would like to make sure that you're going to be able to support your family going forward and pay your bills. We need to do something. And what he told me is that, and this is where we are stepping into box 2, beside the industry, which is psychology. And it's almost like a therapeutic discussion, to be honest, with your workforce. Because in the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're having this conversation, and this is for the employers to really understand the challenge of this and the importance, to convey that message in a way that your workforce does not get immediately scared. Because I put a lot of money on it. If any of you get an email in half an hour from your employer saying that, we are thinking to signing you up next week to a training because we think it's going to be good for you 6 months from now, you're going to be probably calling your boss that, what does that mean? Do I still have a job? Or are you saying that you don't need me anymore? Now, when it comes to blue-collar workers and technical workforce, this is even more difficult. And if you lose that workforce right then and there, because if I go home panicking, so apparently this plant is shutting down in 6 months and I'm going to be out of my job, how I'm going to pay for the kids to go to school, whatever. Most people, you lose that workforce. That's the point. That's the experience, at least in Eastern Europe. Because then you start driving an Uber, then you start doing whatever else which you possibly can, and you're never going to get those skills back. And not just in Ukraine, rest of Europe, the problem is that not just that we don't have the skills, we actually don't have the human bodies, the number of workers we need. So you cannot afford to lose that workforce and those skills you have today. But it's an extremely sensitive and tough conversation, and I do think, as a last thought here, as an employer, regionally, on the ground, we do understand how difficult it is sometimes to find the right entities in Europe, in Brussels, on member state level even. But do look for those companies, initiatives, who can help you locally to understand or support this process of what skills will these people need, how should I communicate about that, what projects, EU financing I can tap into to somehow release this burden, because there are resources out there. There's a lot of effort from the Commission being done, but we also need to do the effort bottom up of trying to utilize those opportunities. It's a hard job.
It is. And Frazina, I think you made an excellent point about the retention of skills. Once they're gone, they're gone. They don't re-emerge. You know, they don't somehow re-emerge in communities voluntarily. They're gone. So you have to try and maintain them. It was a very salient point. Thank you. Zelda, over to you. Same question. How do you align training with personal aspirations, with labour market aspirations? But interestingly, you've also been asked a direct question. Just from your experience in Romania, how many of the workers have found work through Renew Acad? So if you could perhaps, you know, answer the first question, then just give that context in regard to your success.
Yes. So we at Renew Acad we first go to the private investments in the area. So we identify those investments and we identify the skilled needs. We did that in Gorj. We have a big investment in a PV plant. So what we did is we went to the energetical complex Oltenia, and we talked with the management and asked them if they allow us to reskill and upskill their workers to prepare them for the investment that is going to happen. And they agreed. So we started the Gorj project. And how we met the needs of the miners, and not only the miners, because there were workers that were not working in the mine, but they will still be out of job. And we met their needs by making the training in a schedule that they could attend, because they work in 3 shifts. So for the daytime shift, we made the courses at night and so on. Regarding how many former miners got a job, I think the number is 250. In the last 5 years, we managed to do this. I think we could do more, and we hope we can do more,
But it shows the model works. You know, it is a reasonable number of people being taken from coal mining into renewable energy. So thank you for that, Zelda. Richard, I know you want to add a few comments, but there's actually a question that I would like to put to you that's been submitted. And it's very much around 2 things. One is, from your experience, do the ZPAC workers, the workers working in the power industry, the coal industry, have skills that are suitable for renewable energy? How easy is it to train them? And how do you manage, or have you got plans for managing a lack of demand? You know, what happens if you train people, but there isn't sufficient demand in the economy to absorb them? How do you prepare a sort of plan B in that outcome?
Podstawą w odpowiedzi na wcześniejsze
Well, the key to answer this question is to really prepare the right mode of conduct. We collaborate with 10 other entities, which is quite unique at European scale. We have a partnership of 10 stakeholders, 10 partners. But what's the effect? The effect is synergy between those partners. We try to reach the employees. The employees at ZEPAC are employees at a company that is in operation, that is still working. So what is very important is support from the employer, support from trade unions as well, and social partners, so that information about opportunities offered by the project can reach people who are still in employment. And as one more thing, that is shielding the people, shielding offered by the state, but also being aware of what you can achieve through the program. I'm talking about current employees. And another situation is where we have an ex-miner, where the ex-miner meets a partner on the project, for example, an employment agency or a labor office or another entity. And there, the miner learns about the project and the benefits it brings. But when the miner accesses the project, joins the project, then we have an individual work plan, individual action plan for every individual person, where we identify the potential of the person, the capacity of the person, the skill set of the person, the educational background of the person. These elements, after thorough investigation, enable us to develop a path for either path leading to either self-employment or to finding a job. If they need additional competencies, we will give them those additional competencies. We'll train them. If they need additional psychological counseling, we will provide them with psychological counseling. Appropriate diagnosis, as is assessment, is crucial. And then we have two possibilities. Either they become self-employed or they find a new job. And then, of course, we are happy for them that they have found a new path, or maybe something goes wrong along the way, and then we re-invite them to the project, and then we work with them again to finally reach the end result that we want.
Your comments obviously resonated with the audience. I'd like to turn to Michael. Couple of things. One is just your thoughts on how do you align training with the aspirations, personal aspirations of the trainees and fit with demand in the local economy, given you've got, as we said, a very fluid environment. I'd quite like to be cheeky and tack on another question, which I think is quite an interesting one. It was in regard to the skills programs which you're delivering. How does the emergence of AI fit into that, curriculum? And, I think we're all amazed at how the Ukraine economy has actually shown a very high level of innovation in IT, in areas such as drones, to be quite blunt. So if you could think on the first question, but then give some thoughts about the implications of AI and digitalization, etc., for the provision of skills development.
Thank you, Robert. I think the current labor market crisis in Ukraine gives a lot of opportunities for people who are currently not in a job. Yeah, I explicitly would like to mention women here, because women now have the chance to move into higher paid jobs, which were before perceived as male-dominated jobs. I think we have a huge possibility for inclusion in the labor market because every helping hand is needed, and even people with disabilities now have a chance to find a job. And the third category, I would say, are ex-competents, a growing group in Ukraine. Everybody who left the army now needs to have a bridge back into the labor market, but also back into society. When you look on these three last groups, they all require additional support, and I think this needs to build into the system. Yeah, we are talking here about psychological support when it comes to ex-competence, career guidance for women and helping them even to transition into the labor market. And so I think for each of the target groups to really fulfill their potential, additional support is required. And this is not easy for a country at war, and I think there also our program Skills for Recovery is looking into. The second aspect which you are mentioning, AI, is an interesting fact because Ukraine has a strong IT sector. Yeah, even if you look into companies like Six, they have their IT company outsourced to Ukraine. However, in the economic sectors outside of the IT sector, you recognize a little bit, they are still catching up. So I found statistics that in the EU, in average, 20 to 30% of the companies are using AI in their operational processes. Yeah? Always depends whether it's for HR, production, or research and marketing. In Ukraine, it's only roughly 10%. So Ukrainian companies outside of the IT sector, they need to catch up a little bit. Yeah, and I think their really skills matter. What we are doing there, we are looking into how to build AI skills and competencies into qualifications, into standards there, even into more, let's say, complex occupations. And the other aspect, what we are doing is we are supporting vocational education and training schools to even catch up with the private sector, because it's the teachers who need to convey the skills to students, to learners, and familiarize them with the potential of AI.
Thank you, Michael. An excellent response. I think there's a lot we could have unpacked with that, but unfortunately, time is not that kind to us this morning. So we have another question that I think actually is relevant to all the panel. And again, it's just about the fast evolving technology context. It's something which, personally, I'm very alive to, that we are going to actually have to rethink training for the technologies that are in the pipeline, both how we deliver training, but how we accredit training. And this question goes to the heart of the matter. How can the skills initiatives that we've discussed today and the accreditation schemes stay on top in a fast evolving technology context and yet still be relevant to Coal Plus regions? So I think I'll just take it from yourself, Rosina, and then we'll just work around the panel.
I'm going to start with a potentially surprising answer here. But the first and most important thing, in my opinion, is to be able to remove pride from the discussion on European level. Take ego out of the fact how we are looking at education. And I know it might sound quite intriguing, but what I mean is that the speed of change in the energy sector and when it comes to AI and digital skills is absolutely unprecedented. It has never been this fast before, ever. It's really hard to comprehend. Currently, we are really not just talking about ChatGPT, asking to put together a grocery list for all of us or plan our holidays. Sure, we all use it. But we're looking into a fact that we're companies in Europe as well starting to implement AI agents. That is practically, to be very simple here, that's a virtual robot you give a task to and provide resources, internet access, your bank credit card details, whatever. And it's going to do everything what is needed to deliver you what you need. So if right now I put in a certain software that I am sitting right here and I'm thirsty and I need water, it knows my location, has my credit card details, is going to deliver me water with probably Uber Eats in 20 minutes. Okay? So the reason why I'm mentioning that we need to take pride out of the discussion, because the way we let curricula to evolve in vocational trainings, in formal education, high schools, primary schools, and universities, we need to start welcoming somehow innovation in this discussion and work with it, not against it, because it's going to backfire long term. So I do encourage high schools, universities, in the countryside, in urban areas, to dedicate time and effort for this discussion. Sit down with the teachers, sit down with the professors, ask one of your Gen Z students to tell you what that really means in your everydays. And they're going to be mind blown by the reality. But that needs to happen today to understand how fast we need to go.
Frosina, brilliant response. I love the whole thing about 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. We'll keep it tight. Thank you, Jose. I do get carried away when the conversation's so interesting. Michael, just your thoughts on how the curriculum and accreditation may have to evolve to keep up with technology. We've heard about pride and the need for responsiveness, but over to you with your perspectives.
I can only second what you were saying. In Ukraine, there is the requirement to update curricula every 5 years, and they see it more as a regulatory requirement. Good luck with the AI, Jatens, then. It will be hard to keep pace. So I think to have more flexible solutions here, also looking into certain modules which can be easier adapted in the curriculum development. We have this whole development of looking more into micro-credentials, so additional aspects of skills, more flexible tools here. I think this would be all welcomed, and we really need to move away from the feeling that a qualification is a fixed asset which will not change in 5 years. Flexibility needs to be built in.
Super, thank you. Richard, please, over to you.
Jeżeli zastanawiamy się przez chwilę.
When you wonder for a moment about the level of engagement in new technologies, the level of capacity in coal plus regions in adopting these new technologies, then let me invite you once again to the stand we have on the ground floor by the gentleman who spoke before this panel. And this is a great showcase showing that ex-miners can enter the realm of newest technologies. And sometimes my impression is that AI will have to catch up with them, not the other way around.
Thanks for that response, and also just for marketing the exhibition downstairs, because I was actually going to remind people to go and visit it, the stall downstairs, but you've done that for me, so thank you, Richard. Selda, over to you. How is the curriculum and accreditation going to have to change in this very fluid environment?
I think the curriculum already changes through all the programs that we already have. And I think the most challenging thing is to align it across countries at EU level. I think the certification and the accreditation is the bigger issue and challenge, because I see universities that they are trying to up-to-date their curricula to make extra curricular trainings, and I think the training sector and the university and the educational institutions, they are up to date, but I think the labor industries have to get along with them.
A very good point to end on, Selda. You know, it is very much a partnership of social actors, you know, from not just the education sector, but trade unions, industry, etc. So we've been beaten by the clock once again, so I do apologize for that. I was hoping that we'd have the little cartoon up that would summarize our discussion, but all I've got is the QR code, which I think I've referenced quite a number of times on this panel. Here we go. Right. It's been a very rich discussion. Obviously, that's my disciplined self. It's time to go, the alarm. I'll keep it short. For me, one of the big things, there were a few things that were really outstanding, was just skills portability. I thought that was a fantastic point. You know, just that we have got a fluid economy. Who knows what the labour market is actually going to look like in 10 years' time? And I thought, you know, not just in the EU, but with our good friends and partners in the Ukraine. So we have to have a degree of flexibility. There was also the whole issue of just, you know, making sure that we always align training with the skills market, etc., which is just one of those eternal conundrums that has to be constantly addressed. But for me, I was really taken by the discussion about the curriculum and accreditation and how it will have to change. And I love to take the ego out, because one of the things which I do kind of always feel is when groups of institutions get together, there is incredible vested interests. And vested interests are held together by, obviously, self-interest, but also egos. And we're going to actually have to rethink how we actually work, you know, together as partners. There's great examples, as Richard has given us, of partnership working here, but right across Europe. But it's going to have to just change fundamentally, the speed of partnership working and the flexibility of partnership working. But Andrea set the scene. There are many flagship projects and initiatives in the pipeline or now underway. So there is resource going into this, and time will tell how these land. So I'd just like to finish by thanking the panel, because they have been a fantastic panel. So if you could put your hands together and thank them. Thank you.
Yes. I didn't know I have to stand by you to make you move, but if that's what it takes. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a very vibrant, interesting, and inspiring panel. Also, the last of the content inputs or expert inputs. And we are slowly moving towards the closing speeches and closing, I wouldn't say ceremony, but I think we are celebrating our presence here. We'll have closing speeches from the organizers, from DG ENER, the European Commission, and from the government of Wielkopolska. Welcome. First, I would kindly invite Veronique Marks. Veronique is coming. To give us a few words on behalf of DG ENER. Veronique at DG ENER has a very responsible role. She's the brain and the heart of Just Transition, but also looking at the issue of energy poverty. And I think this mix is really important to all of us. So Veronique, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. On behalf of EVP Ribera and the whole Commission team, I would really like to thank you very much for this excellent organization. Special thanks to Konin City, to the Wiewka Polska region, and the Development Agency of Konin. And of course also to the CRIT Secretariat for organizing this amazing event. Without all of you, this would have been really impossible, and it was really good. The 2 days of exchanges of this sixth annual political dialogue brought forward the opportunities and challenges that the coal regions are facing on a daily basis. We reminded ourselves of a discussion that we've had already in the last years of these annual political dialogues, and it's really inspiring to see how the future-oriented discussions have become, and that each year we hear about really positive stories of change towards a decarbonized and more effective energy system. Over the past 2 days, the exchanges highlighted what the regions have already achieved and how they contribute to the EU's decarbonization objective. We heard of the future perspective of those regions that they can play, the future perspective that those regions can play in Europe's decarbonized industrial landscape. We also heard how important it is that the price of energy is relatively low and is affordable, so for these economies to flourish and for the energy-intensive industries in those regions to be competitive, as well as the importance of these prices for citizens when they pay their daily energy bills. Participants put forward the lack of strategic and concerted visions of their regions as one of the greatest barriers to a just transition, and this is one of the lessons that we also take back to Brussels. We've heard of the loss or the threat of loss of social cohesion and the cultural heritage aspects that can be brought forward by the transition, and that can also link to the depopulation of these regions. Such social cohesion should not be underestimated and is on equal footing to economic impact of the phasing out of coal. We listened to the need of consumers in the market as well as in climate and energy policies. Examples from Poland underlined the importance of a positive narrative for just transition and how this can really impact change on the ground. We heard this morning about the possibility of renewable energy generation in coal regions, and that we need to continue helping those industries existing in the regions to decarbonize their production. There is a big potential in the post-mining resources for the energy production and the heating. We also heard about the challenges of skilling and reskilling of workers and the role of non-formal education for the future. And many times we heard and witnessed, also in the field trip yesterday, for example, that the transition is a long-term process. It cannot be done very quickly, it takes time. While it is already in full speed, but it will need continued financial and technical assistance resources. And we all need to look together at the opportunities of the context of industrial competitiveness, where the coal regions can play an important role in the EU. When regional and local level is important, we have heard that here, it's really here in those regions that the impact are particularly felt. And that's why we are very glad to announce or to reconfirm that this initiative will continue for the next years, and that we can be able to continue such exchanges as we had over the past 2 days. We will soon let you know when and where the next APD will take place. So again, many thanks to all those who contribute to this, so to all of you, to make this event a big success. We look forward to seeing you back very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronique, very much. This was encouraging, and we also hope to meet you again in this crowd and hopefully even bigger. I would love to hear right now, and I very much appreciate the presence of Mr. Jacek Bogusławski, the member of the board of Wielkopolska region. Panie Marszałku, zapraszamy. Who is bringing the perspective of the local government so important to us and the organizers, but I also believe he has a broad experience as a business person and someone very familiar with the hydrogen, so all the perspectives very welcome. Dziękuję bardzo.
Dzień dobry Państwu.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I won't hide that it is a great pleasure to be here with you for the second day of our joint meeting here in Wielkopolska in the region of Konin. And this region is truly important for us as the self-government of Konin. We pay special attention to it, and we know how important support for this region is. Thanks to all who came to attend this meeting here. Thanks for arriving. Thanks for having a chance to meet us and to have the opportunity to visit this region require this really just transformation. And such meeting as this one are very relevant to us because they help us to indicate the right directions, share good practices, share our experiences. And thank you for hosting you today and yesterday. Our joint meeting about the just transformation of coal region was also accompanied by very good conversations, dialogues, presentations. So thanks to all of those who were using this opportunities coal regions bring to strengthen our regions. We know that we are facing high energy and energy poverty, and so that is why this region is especially important to us, because it requires improved competitiveness. It needs to transfer to renewables. We had a chance to talk about that. We also think that the EU support is very important here. As a self-government, we try to implement all these changes, but without the direct support from Brussels or the funds for transformation in Eastern Wielkopolska, this transformation would not be feasible. We would not be able to achieve the results, and we want this Eastern Wielkopolska region to develop as swiftly as the whole of Wielkopolska, which, as I wanted to remind you again, is a middle-sized region in the EU with perspectives for further faster development. So the panel of main fears regarding the just transformation was quite important. The role of the EU was also underlined. What should be done not to let these people in the post-coal regions to be left alone? That's quite important. This topic is raised each and every time when we talk, and it's very emotional. We, on ourselves, try to give as much support as possible. We'd like to search for opportunities to give you support. These fears are there, but we try to diminish them. I think that cooperation with trade unions and with NGOs is looking very well now, and this is not the end. Actions related to transformation will be continued. That is why I'd like to thank to the Agency of Regional Development in Konin that has taken over the burden of organizing many of these actions. Thank you, Mr. President, the director of this organization. We monitor these actions, and you also have a chance to contact them directly during the meetings of the board of the voivodeship or during the meeting of the self-government parliament. This information is very often pondered upon, and we really appreciate these activities, and we know that we can count on each other's support in this area. We had a panel on that, a very important panel on partnership. The partnership seems to be the most successful strategy for transformation, especially for post-coal regions. We see that this transformation requires a flexible planning, and this is also something we are very aware of. In our region, we were able to show case studies of best practices from Wielkopolskie region, from Eastern Wielkopolska, that should be adopted in other regions. The program Road to Employment After Coal, we have 260 million zloty, 160 million from the Just Transformation Fund. This is a flagship project to us. I'm happy that you were able to get acquainted with it. It indicates that the actions taken should be focused on people who are going to leave the coal industry. We need to find a place for them. We need to support them. We need to ensure them the same level of life. They need to have a chance to realize their passions and ambitions. We should stop them from leaving this region or this country. And so these resources indicated for this goal will definitely be applied. I know that there are bigger needs in this area, but we'll be monitoring this on an ongoing basis. I talked about that to you previously. Now, low emission public transportation, this is also a minor environmental project. I don't know if the president of Konin is here with us. If so, thank him. I'd like to thank him for this initiative for purchasing hydrogen buses. This is one of the first region where we had the first or have had the first hydrogen bus functioning regularly on one of the lines. We've been searching for many applications for hydrogen technologies, and Konin was the place where we've applied it. Actions are also undertaken in Konin to produce green hydrogen. We also continue the project with purchasing further subsequent 10 hydrogen buses. And as the president of the Wielkopolskie Hydrogen Platform and one of the co-creators of this Hydrogen Valley, I know that this is a great chance and a great opportunity to use these resources for our inhabitants and to make this region zero emission region until 2040. I have my own strategy for that, and jointly we'll be striving to achieve this goal, and will definitely want to share all information about our actions. I am happy that Professor Michał Wieczorowski talked about the support of the Polish Hydrogen Chamber that was created on the first day of spring this year. It's been officially registered and it's already supporting the entrepreneurs of this subregion and all over the country. This strategy should be well visible. I know that we have also a project of applied sciences of lifelong learning. This is a example of investment in human capital worth supporting. We have about 460 participants and the budget is about 12,260,000 zloty. Post-coal region also must support innovation. They must attract investment into new technologies. For that, we need partnerships between self-governments, private sector, and academia, both on local and global level, where participation in management process and promotion of good practice is really important. Also, the international level is really important, as we see here today. So we cooperate with the EU organizations, with global organizations. We also participate in big initiatives like one of the alliances or the cooperation with the World Bank. It increases the attractiveness of the region and it also draws concrete actions to the region and concrete investments. And thank you all for all of that. The discussion panels that took place were also of great significance. We wanted to increase the potential of people through the energy policy in coal regions. We also pondered upon the possibility to introduce clean energy in post-coal regions. These panels show each and every time that it is always relevant to show concrete examples proving how important the cooperation and partnership is among all partners. Then we had a question to the experts about investing in post-coal regions, and there was also a question about the qualification of post-coal transformation. We also had a question about raising qualifications of the employees and the engagement of the private sector in the whole endeavor. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. I think that yesterday was a very high-level discussion. It also a day where you had a chance to rest and get acquainted with places where the changes are taking place. And I hope that Wielkopolska, the region which is famous for its hospitality and a place where we implement our goals and plans step by step, we monitor them, we've learned them thanks to the EU, and we are implementing that with great success. I hope you spent this time well and you've seen that this region is not just talking about changes, but actually these concrete changes are really being implemented. And I want the whole process related to the transformation of post-coal regions to be the program that's going to be continued. I hope that we'll be able to get acquainted with this program based on the case studies you've seen. I hope you'll be able to share those cases, and I hope that the EU projects will be continued. We as Wielkopolska are ready for that. We will be listening to you, we will be talking to you, and we will be always inviting you to visit us, to feel at home, a home where you can talk about all possible topics without any restriction, where you can talk frankly about needs and where you can show the solutions. And I hope that these 2 days have led to that. Thank you very much for your presence again in Wielkopolska. Thank you for your presence in Konin, in the region which is a pearl in our voivodeship, and it requires a transformation, and until 2040 we will make it a zero emission region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the closing speeches. I would like to start my closing speech from acknowledging that I failed, and I will tell you how I failed, all of you, miserably. One of the tasks I was given, and my hope for the session, the moderation of those 2 sessions, was to share with you some information on Konin, its rich history, its geography, its heritage, its people. So with a kind support from co-organizers and the hosts from Konin and the organizers from Wielkopolska, I started truly preparing. I've read through the history, I've prepared on the context, the political and societal context, and I realized that I will not be able to do justice to the richness of this history, which at times was difficult, at times was beautiful, at times was promising, at times was full of despair. And no 2 bullet points can actually capture this or reflect. So I started reflecting differently. I started reflecting on what this kind of history has done to its people. Or really, what is it in the people of Konin that helped them to prevail and flourish across this history? And I really focused on that. Now, as most of the cool kids in the room do, I've asked ChatGPT. I've asked ChatGPT, so how are the people of Konin? I was congratulated that this is a very good question, as Chat usually does. And I received an answer with a lot of clarity, and I think, as we don't always get correct answers with ChatGPT, I think this time it nailed it. So I quote, "The people of Konin are resilient, hardworking, and community-oriented." And I encourage you very much, all of us here visitors from Poland, from other countries, from other continents, to take a moment and explore the rich history and the heritage of the region and of the city. But if there is one thing that I want you to remember, in case you don't have the time to read the history, remember that people of Konin are resilient, are hardworking, and are community-oriented. And I think this is the most important thing we could have learned through those 2 days here. And this is something that I wish to all of us in the regions transitioning and all of us supporting the regions transitioning. Be like people in Konin. Now, one thing that we have also learned, I don't know if ChatGPT knew that, then I will kind of feed it back, but we've learned yesterday through this beautiful concert of the mining brass band that people of Konin and people of Wielkopolska are also proud of its mining heritage. And it's very important to all of us from all the regions that we represent. The discussions we had yesterday and today were amazing. Were about the future, were optimistic, promising, very realistic, but they were about where we are headed to, about the green future. And this is important, and I applaud everyone. But I also appreciate the fact that we had the opportunity to listen to the orchestra, because we are also very proud, and all of us should be very proud, of the rich heritage and history of the mining regions. It has been, for many years, and it still is, the sacrifice and the dangerous work of the miners that has allowed us to build our cities, our industries, our roads, to warm up our houses, and for this we are very grateful. I know we have representatives of the trade unions here, and I hope this message gets across. These are the few words from me, not very expert-y, but I think this has been an emotional visit for all of us here with wonderful hosting from the city of Konin, and we are grateful. What happens now? We will have lunch. We are very much welcome to a lunch which is being served downstairs. Kindly, the organizers have also provided lunch packages that you are encouraged to take with you for your journey's return home, so they will be available in the foyer. We are closing our formal part of the dialogue, the political dialogue here. But as I was mentioning before, we are really thrilled to have 2 more events accompanying the main event, and they will be accessible to you as of 2 p.m. today. We have the event organized or co-organized by Forum Energy and Bloomberg Philanthropies that will be held in restaurant Nowa Era at ulica Dworcowa. And colleagues from Forum Energy and Bloomberg Philanthropy will be accompanying you there. They will be meeting in the foyer at 1:30 to take you for a walk. The event will be a wonderful opportunity, really, to expand our horizons and learn about the best practices, not just from Europe, but from Brazil, Colombia, Indonesia, China, US. And I think we really, really benefit the most from learning from each other's experiences. Bankwatch CE is organizing an event which is also starting at 2 p.m., so the choice is really hard where to go. The event will be held here at the Oscar Center at the ground floor, I believe, starting at 2 p.m., and also Bankwatch CE will be accompanying you there. It will be a wonderful opportunity to listen to panelists from some of the Polish municipalities and regions, and to listen and understand and capture really that the transition that all the regions are undergoing is at different paces and at different stages. And I think this is also a wonderful learning opportunity for all of us. There will be colleagues and representatives of regions from the Western Balkans, from Bosnia, North Macedonia, Serbia. I hope I'm not missing anyone. So again, opportunity for us to go broader in our understanding of not really just transition, because that doesn't exist, but just transitions and what it means for those different regions. Here are the details of the events, and I warmly invite you to participate in one of them at least. This is it. We do appreciate your feedback. This is a QR code that will take you to a feedback survey where we would love to hear from you about the event, but also about the general initiative for core regions in transition and the support you have been receiving. Be honest, but also be kind. So we will take it into account and learn and hopefully meet again for an event that may possibly be even better than this one. Thank you very much.